From the News Channel 3 newsroom, this is Coachella Valley Questions Answered. Back to the classroom. We've gathered our school leaders to answer your questions about the return to in-person learning. With answers to those questions and more, here's Peter Doubt.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight in this special edition of News Channel 3 at 6:30, we're taking an in-depth look at the return of in-person learning and answering your questions about the changes affecting Coachella Valley students, parents, teachers, and staff. Once again, we have brought together our Valley's three superintendents. From the Palm Springs Unified School District, Dr. Sandra Lyon. From Desert Sands Unified School District, Scott Bailey. And from the Coachella Valley Unified School District, Interim Superintendent Juan Lopez. Thank you all for being here. Okay, I'd like to start with the timeline for bringing students back to campus since it's different for each district. Right now, Desert Sands is the only district in the Valley to have both middle and high school students on campus. So Scott, tell us why your district is ahead of the other two and how has the return been going so far?
Well, I don't know if I would classify it as being ahead. I suppose, on the calendar we're ahead as far as bringing students back. We actually brought our pre-K through fifth grade back March 15th. So we have some experience under the belt with the elementary so far. And then Monday this week, March 29th, we brought back in the hybrid model the grades 6 through 12.
And how has the reopening been so far for Desert Sands?
It's been awesome. I can't tell you how much we miss the kids. It's so energizing. I just finished my 27th site visit since we opened. I think I have 7 more sites to visit this week. But from all signs, it's been glorious. It's been very smooth. The staff has really stepped up. The students are very happy to be back, and we're just ecstatic.
And Scott, even though Desert Sands has now reopened for hybrid learning, the district is still working to find missing students. And we recently profiled the assistant principal of Indio High School as he went to check on students who have not been showing up for virtual learning. How big of a problem is this and what's being done about it?
It appears the students are out there, but we have to go find them in some cases. A lot of our students, unfortunately, have experienced some family hardships, and they have some very personal stories that keeps them from coming back to the hybrid model. But I think staff has really dug in, as you saw illustrated with Assistant Principal Pimentel's story at Indio High School, going out and finding the students and seeing what they need so we can better engage them and meet their needs.
Moving on to Palm Springs USD, Dr. Lyon, why has your district planned to bring back middle schoolers but not high schoolers? And why is the timeline different than Desert Sands?
Right, thank you, Peter. Well, we had a spring break that's actually right now, and it's a 2-week spring break. And that really did impact the time frame in which we decided to bring students back. We didn't want to start our TK2 students for a week and then disrupt them and bring them back after spring break. So we really gauged those reopening dates based on that. I am happy to say we're bringing back high schoolers. That was announced at our last board meeting. And so toward the end of April, we'll start with our seniors, and then we'll bring back our juniors and sophomores, and then our freshmen. So our goal is to get all those students TK-12 that want to step foot on a campus there before the end of the year.
And Dr. Lyon, are you also concerned that many students may have fallen through the cracks because of virtual learning? And what is the district now doing to find them?
I think we're concerned about that valley-wide, statewide, county-wide. It's something we're all talking about. Much like the story in Desert Sands, we send people out. We have our community liaisons, administrators who are going door to door, calling, checking on people. I think as Superintendent Bailey said, families have moved, relocated. Students who are in high school in particular are working, taking care of students sometimes in a different location. So all of those factors have made it challenging to make sure that we know where students are. But just like our colleagues in the other districts, we're all knocking on doors to make sure we can find out where our students are.
All right, moving on to Coachella Valley Unified. Juan, your district decided not to bring students back for in-person instruction on April 19th. But this has created some confusion since it still leaves the possibility to bring students back at a later date. So let me ask you, does your district still plan to bring back students in a hybrid model at all before the semester ends?
The model will be based on the Power Up model we use for specialized groups. When we did our survey, 74% of our parents want to keep with distance learning. The 26% are basically tied to a lack of connectivity, some attendance issues. And so we're facilitating a program called Power Up so that those families get to come in. In essence, it's distance learning, an expansion of distance learning. We're trying to address the need in our community. As you know, the East Valley has areas that have very poor connectivity. And even though the district's made many efforts to improve on that, it still remains an issue. So we're hopeful that April 19th, that program will be fully implemented. And we give our families an option of whether to continue with distance learning from home or allow those children to come into school. And for us, the challenge is transportation. It's a major effort to organize that. We're doing that already. We have those students' names and prepared to serve them as best we can.
And if I could follow up with you, Juan, you mentioned the parent survey, but what was the main reason behind your district's decision not to bring students back? And why is the district not ready at this point?
The district, if we felt that it was a need that the community had, we were ready to implement. This staff, I came here 6 weeks ago. The amount of work that's been put into creating an effective model was on the table. When only 26% want to come back, that really sets our direction. We're here to meet the needs of our community. And so the biggest issue is, what does the community want? Do they want the full hybrid, or do they want an expansion of distance learning and an improvement of it? And that's where we're going with it.
All right, focusing now on vaccinations and testing, which is obviously a major component of reopening. Can you give us an estimate of how many school staff have been vaccinated in your district? And what do students, parents, teachers, and staff need to know about how your district is handling vaccinations and testing? Scott.
Certainly, I don't have any hard numbers, but I can just roughly estimate that approximately half our staff have been vaccinated, and I'm drawn to the only data I have available, and that is we had a wait list of staff members that wanted to take advantage of our own vaccination clinics that we've hosted in the district, and I know that we've dropped the number about half from what was on the wait list. So that's my only indicator at this moment.
And how, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, testing, if I could conclude with that. Testing is certainly an option that's provided staff and students on Wednesdays in the district in our current schedule.
On Wednesdays, okay. Dr. Lyon.
I would say the same. You know, we don't collect vaccination data, so I'm going to assume that Superintendent Bailey's numbers are probably about right. We know that when we first started offering vaccination clinics, they filled up in a minute. And now we are seeing we have open spots available. So that's a really good indicator that those in our community and our staff community that want to be vaccinated have been able to be vaccinated. So we feel good about that. We also will have the surveillance testing offered to students and staff on Wednesdays once we're back for that in-person instruction. And schedules will be up on our website and will be communicated through our school sites.
And Juan.
On vaccinations, I've been impressed from day one how many different agencies have been calling us to provide vaccines for staff. We've had them at both high schools. We're doing like 500 to 750 when we do those. Desert Oasis Healthcare has been unbelievable in terms of support. So is Walgreens, so is My Turn. We're doing well. In terms of numbers, I think we all know we're really not allowed to ask those type of questions. And when we ask our employee associations, they don't even get good results back. We know it's a preponderance of staff who have the vaccine. We wish we knew the number. I don't think we ever will. But the energy towards facilitating a vaccine has been impressive. It really has.
Tell us about school meals, lunches, and how that's all being handled as your district allows students to return to the classroom. Scott, since this is already underway in your district, go ahead first.
Yes, if you're participating in the hybrid model, either a cohort A or cohort B in our district, and that's about 63% of our student population. So 63% of 27,000 students, you can get the grab and go meals at your school site. And we have seating, we've inserted additional tables outdoors, so students can eat their breakfast or lunch on those tables within the appropriate 6-foot distancing. For students that are participating in the distance learning model, which is about 37% of our population, we have a grab and go concept on Wednesdays. Just as we provide the option for the COVID testing, we also have the pickup and meal delivery distribution on Wednesdays each week at school sites.
Dr. Lyon.
Again, very similar to my colleague in Desert Sands. So we have grab and go for our students who are going to be doing the in-person learning, and they will grab a lunch and the breakfast for the next day to take home with them on their way out. And then on Wednesdays, we're going to do the week-long meal pickup, just as we've been doing for the last year.
And Juan.
It's really all of the above, Ibid. It's we're all having the same issues to address and handling it the same way. We're ready to feed our kids.
All right, thanks everyone. Coming up, we'll ask the superintendents about the changes everyone can expect when students return to campus. Plus, what happens if a student or teacher tests positive for coronavirus? Stay with us for this special edition of News Channel 3 at 6:30, Back to the Classroom. Welcome back, everybody, to the special edition of News Channel 3 at 6:30, Back to the Classroom with all three Valley superintendents. We're continuing to answer your questions about the return of in-person learning. I'd now like to ask each of you, what specific changes should everyone be aware of on campus and on the athletic fields, and how will these changes be enforced? Also, California recently adopted CDC guidelines that allows for 3 feet of social distancing in school instead of 6 feet. So where does your district stand on this? Scott, since your district has already brought many students back, let's start with you.
Sure. We've already gone through those changes, if you will, having brought back our elementary schools March 15th. The changes basically are around safety protocols, and social distancing is one of those, as you've outlined. So you see markers, signage. We have instituted additional restroom usage procedures, for example, different lunch procedures. We have more plexiglass, especially in our elementary schools. The requirement to wear a mask, but again, everything's centered around trying to protect public health. Those guidelines and procedures that have been implemented change the school environment considerably. And the same thing would apply to middle and high schools, having come online this Monday.
Dr. Lyon.
Yeah, again, the same. I think we were talking just today about the idea that gone are the kidney-shaped tables where we collected students around and did reading groups, or the tables where students did their cooperative learning. So some of those strategies that we've been used to using over many years, you won't see for a little while because, again, it's individual desks, that appropriate spacing, the plexiglass, all, as Superintendent Bailey said, to ensure that our students and our staff are as safe as possible. We all have arrows, we have stenciled paw prints or whatever the mascot is of the school to show that 6-foot distancing in ingress and egress. And we've done a lot. So I think our families, when they walk on campus, will know what to do. Our students will know what to do, where to go, and will understand the new patterns of behavior.
Juan.
You know, we recently had staff go visit each site just to make sure that the protocols were all in place, and the good news is that they were. We're ready. We know there's a great need to be cautious and be safe. Much of what you've heard, we're all doing the same thing, following the guidelines that are available to us, and making sure that when kids return, they're as safe as they can be.
All right, I'd now like to ask each of you to take us through a worst case scenario if a student or teacher on campus tests positive for coronavirus. What is the plan if that happens? And also to make sure no additional cases pop up as a result. Scott.
Sure. First of all, we have to have the positive test. Then we would ask that student to isolate away from the school setting. There would be a notification to the affected party, any immediate persons within the vicinity that might have potentially been exposed to COVID, and certainly a larger notification to the general community, as well as reporting to the state's website of an infection.
Would that affect the classroom setting at all, the students who are in the class?
Just through contact tracing, obviously, if the students were in near proximity of a positive, we would include them in our notification for sure. And if you have a certain amount of positive cases in a school or a district, then that could take it to a different threshold within collaboration or within collaboration with the public health entities to decide whether or not we had to close a school or schools.
Dr. Lyon.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add and build on from Superintendent Bailey's answer is we all work in strong connection to the County Department of Public Health when any positive test happens on one of our campuses. So that triggers a whole process around contact tracing to ensure that we are following the correct protocols and making sure the communication is going out as it should. We also will have a website or a live dashboard on our website that will indicate across the district any positive cases. So at any time, a family can go to psusd.us and see if we have any positive cases on any of our campuses. And then as Superintendent Bailey said, we are reporting to the state website and their collection of data as well.
And Juan.
The only part I would add to that is that we've established an isolation room on every campus. So we have a place to put people till we figure out what the next step is. And that allows the isolation on campus until we know what we have to do next.
All right, moving on. Distance learning, while necessary, has led to learning loss for millions of students across the nation. How is your district planning to address the loss in learning from the past year? Scott?
Thank you for that question. Certainly, we've already begun the process of addressing any concerns with learning loss in the sense that we have an online tutoring service that's available to students currently. As we move into the summer months, we will be expanding what used to be a summer school concept, and that will be driven largely by assessment data, our internal assessment data. So you can expect a pretty robust summer school schedule in Desert Sands.
Dr. Lyon.
So I'm really anti-learning loss language, and I do think that constantly labeling this generation with this idea that they're a deficit, that they've lost something, is going to be problematic going forward. So I'm a real proponent of talking about we'll meet our students where they are, and we're going to move them forward. And I think that, they haven't lost anything. These kids have learned a lot. They have a whole set of new skills that they didn't have a year ago that we're going to build on. And we're going to catch kids where they are and move them forward. The legislature, in their wisdom, doesn't call the extra funds learning loss mitigation. They call it expanded learning. And that's really what we're going to work on providing, is making sure that we're meeting students where they are and giving them more opportunities to build on where they are. I really want to work on keeping this generation focusing on all the attributes and assets, because there are some things that I think we'll unpack over the years and build on where they are moving forward.
And Juan.
This is where our energy is focused now. We understand that there's going to be differences in kids arriving. Imagine getting first graders in August who've only had distance learning in kinder. It's an issue, and we're talking about it. We're talking about what type of assessment we do to get ready for not only summer school and the start of school. What type of interventions are we going to be bold enough and brave enough to undertake? Because we all know that you need to be a reader by third grade, and we're going to target that. Are there needs across the spectrum? Without a doubt. You can't assume that the child who would have been in kinder for a year will come into first grade the way they would have 2 years ago. We need to address that, and all we're talking about now is what type of interventions do we put in place to help our kids be successful. That, to me, that's actually a bigger issue than hybrid, because that's really the real issue of one school, and we are all hopeful that kids and students will be back together for the start of school, and then that's when the real challenge begins. That's when the real work begins to help our kids be successful.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Coming up, the superintendents share their final thoughts, the message they want the community to hear about the return of in-person learning. I'd now like for each superintendent to raise their hands to a few questions. Raise your hand if you think distance learning will still be around in the fall. 1, 2, 3, all of you. Okay, now raise your hand if you think your district may have to extend the school year to make up for any learning loss. None of you. Raise your hand if you think your district will have to face another distance learning situation similar to the pandemic at some point within the next decade. None of you. All right, finally, raise your hand if you believe parents in your district are satisfied with your decisions regarding the return to the physical classroom. None of you. Okay. One of you. Two, wait, hold on. Half of you, okay. All right, now I'd like for each of you to share your final thoughts. What does the community need to know when it comes to how your district is handling the return of in-person learning? Scott.
I want the community to know that we're ecstatic to have our kids back in the building, and we desire more and more one-to-one in-person opportunity with our students as we move to, I guess you would classify this as a new normal, into the fall. So just know that we're excited, and it's been a long time since we've seen our kids. We embrace the fact that they're back in the classrooms.
Dr. Lyon.
I echo that. We're so excited to see students on campus again, and we're going to meet them where they are and move them forward. We acknowledge there's going to be some stuff we're going to have to do differently. We're ready to do it. Our staff are prepared and excited. We love what we do on every campus, and we're excited to start to do a little bit more of what we're used to doing on a regular basis.
And Juan.
Everybody here is anxiously awaiting a chance for all students and teachers to be back at school. They don't just want to be in their presence, they want to touch them. They want to interact with them. And the exciting part and the message to our parents is we'll get there. We'll get there. And understand that everybody here is working toward that goal, and we'll get there. Thank you for all your cooperation.
All right, thanks to each of our Valley superintendents, Scott Bailey, Dr. Sandra Lyon, and Juan Lopez, for being here tonight. And thank you for watching this special edition of Coachella Valley Questions Answered. Remember, you can send us your questions anytime to share@kesq.com. I'm Peter Dowd. Have a great night, everybody.